from the Green Room at the Palace in historic downtown Middlesboro, Kentucky. It's August the 9th, 2018. I'm Gary Daniels with LMU Community TV and WLMU Cumberland Gap Radio. And we're here sitting with and visiting with Mo Pitney, country musician, singer-songwriter, multi-instrumentalist who writes, performs, and sings from his heart and his life experience, but also in the old traditions of country music and from the heartland of America. Now, he has just finished up his performance for the 4th week of the Levitt Middlesboro Music Series here in Middlesboro. It's in its 4th year, and Mo took time to visit with us here. Mo, it's great to see you, my friend.
Hey, great to see you. Very glad to be here.
Yes, indeed. And what a performance. The energy, the soul, and the excitement of you and your fellow musicians, and then that of the audience here for this free music concert in Middlesboro was just truly electrifying. There's many other words that we can use to describe, but the reception by the community for your concert was wonderful. And it's good to have you visiting with us.
Well, glad to be here. I can tell you on our end of the stage, that really was one of the best nights we've had in a long time. Just it seems like there's little things that can become a barrier to having a great night. You can have good nights playing music, and then when you tip the scales of having a great night, it seems like all the pieces of the puzzle, the sound's got to be right, the audience has to be engaged, they have to care. The weather's got to be good, which it threatened not to be tonight.
That's true.
God helped off the rain.
Amen.
And all those things together just really put us into 5th gear. So I'm thankful that tonight happened that day.
And we're so glad that again you took time after the performance to be here with us tonight. Tell us a little bit about yourself and the influences of your of how you grew up and your musical influences and how you took to playing instruments, and singing and the writing as well.
Well, taking to playing instruments, I'll start with that. I think every little boy especially wants to be like their hero. And when I was young, that was my dad. Mm-hmm. And I think that's very common. I think God's wired us that way. You just want to be like the man.
Exactly.
And he played guitar, steel guitar, banjo, acoustic and bass, and pretty much anything with strings except for a fiddle is what I tell people. Mm-hmm. And so I was able to get my hands on the guitar when I was 13. Before that, I played his drum kit and played a little in church, and that was really me just messing around more than anything. Once I got my hands on his country records, his bluegrass records that he had in a big record closet and CD closet of his, and then grabbed his guitar, it really took off from there. The first couple records I listened to, the very first one was Johnny Cash, Live in San Quentin. And then I grabbed a couple of bluegrass records, a Jimmy Martin record and a J.D. Crowe and the New South record. And I just sat in my room and just learned as much as I could. Some of my musical influences beyond that were Tony Rice, as far as guitar playing goes, and I also loved his singing.
He certainly had a style about it.
Yes, very much. A musical identity, really.
True.
But beyond that, I found Keith Whitley and J.D. Crowe's band, which bridged the gap to country music, and then it was Merle Haggard, Willie Nelson, Roger Miller, Ray Price. That list just seems to never end. Don Williams is a huge influence. And just many, many others. James Taylor, Carole King, a bunch of countless songwriters that not very many people know of. And I could just tell you for hours about their music, but the ones that I've named, go listen to their records because it's amazing.
You mentioned about the great artists to listen to their records, if you could pick up on that.
Yeah, that list of artists is endless, but the ones that I mentioned there, I would encourage people to go listen to them. Pull out those old records, as many as you can, because there's a lot of great inspiration in those records that I hope a lot of people get to listen to.
Amen. So they were great pillars of influence for you, but also in that vein of American music, country music. And I know yesterday when we were talking on air at WLMU, Cumberland Gap Radio, we were talking about, just the traditional country sound. And I know there is a sense of revival, but really that music has always been revived.
Yeah.
But there is, I think, to my ears and experience with Americana music, you take classic country, you take alternative country, you take singer-songwriters, and it seems like there's this reinventing of traditional country music. And of course, you got the bluegrass influences and the influence of blues and such. So I'm always excited to discover musicians such as yourself and discover what are the musical influence, the artists who inspired you. But then how does that bridge over to your songwriting? How did their songwriting and influence you, and what does inspire you when you're writing music?
A lot of the lyrics will come from personal experience.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of my influences, as far as musical influences, normally show up in melodies and phrasing. And then just one thing I realized growing up, I loved the artists that I listened to so much that anytime I tried to cover any of their songs, I would sing it exactly the way that they sang it.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until I could write my own songs that I could create a platform to say, sing all the way all of my heroes did at once.
Mm-hmm.
It took me having to create something that I'd not heard someone else sing, to where all these influences at once could meet one place. And it wasn't until I started writing, I don't think I really became an artist. I think I was just a singer before that, that could copy well. And my wife actually made fun of me the other day. I was singing a Glenn Campbell gospel song around the house called No More Nights, which if anybody's not heard that, I would get on YouTube and listen to his live version of it at a Baptist church called No More Nights. It'll just absolutely undo you. But I was walking around the house singing it. She goes, "You sing every cover song exactly like the artist. You copy everybody," she said. And I'm just thinking, man, once it's done that good, see, I don't fall in love with something unless it's great. And once it's been great, you can't better it, know, and that's why I fell in love with it. So I kind of went off on a tangent there, but I'm saying that to explain that until I wrote, I couldn't make all of those influences into one place until I wrote my own song.
Well, what about gospel music? Music in the church and various styles and different genres of gospel music, and your faith too, and family. How does that influence and play a role in your songwriting and your performing as well?
I'll start with the influences. It would start in my grandpa's church. They had a traveling quartet that sang Southern gospel music. And I learned how to play guitar, learned all of my chords while sitting off to the side of the church playing. And then beyond that, the Gaither vocal band was something that was played a lot at my house. So those big melodies and beautiful songs, the way they were singing were huge. Now beyond that, guys like Rich Mullins and Keith Green. There's a guy named Andrew Peterson who lives in Nashville that kind of heads up something called the Rabbit Room, which is not just music, but there is a lot of music involved with it. Just to explain what the Rabbit Room is and how this has actually really impacted my life. It's actually the bar that C.S. Lewis and J.R.R. Tolkien used to sit in England and share manuscripts.
I know of this bar, yes.
And so they recreated an atmosphere in Nashville for Christian creative artists, whether you're a writer or a photographer or a singer, to gather in one place and support and love one another. And when I cracked into that world, there is 1,000 types of obscure and then also really familiar sounding music that is centered around Christ. And that was like taking a drink of clean water when I cracked that open. And it was actually through that avenue that I found Keith Green and Rich Mullins.
Mhm.
I said all of that to say, before that, I had heard somebody, and this is when I first started to write songs, how do you write without reading? And when I cracked into that world, my songwriting seemed to have blossomed, and I found my own voice. Because I not only found them, but I found writers like C.S. Lewis and J.R.R. Tolkien, and I started to take off with that, and it just started to pump and fuel my songwriting. And I hope it has left a mark of thankfulness, appreciation of my family, appreciation of all the gifts that God has given me, and then ultimately praise to the creator of all of it. Is my hope, whether it be something I say or something I sing or write, that people know that he's the king and I'm not, even though sometimes I try to fight for that seat.
Right.
He is the king.
Right. I think the legacy, the Christian legacy of C.S. Lewis and J.R.R. Tolkien and of those great men, and how this is a continuation of that, isn't it?
Yes. And I would hope that people would look up the rabbit room and see how much they have been able to revive that time through beautiful, modern, current music.
Mm-hmm.
And it would really feed the soul for those who checked it out.
Truly so. Now, real quickly on bluegrass music, that's a very important aspect of music for you in your life and the evolution and your journey.
Yeah, I probably 2 years after I played guitar, about a year after I played guitar, I played an open mic jam, and I played some of these Johnny Cash songs that I had learned. And the band after me was a bluegrass band. And I saw a guy playing the banjo, and I said, "Dad, I want to do that." And he goes, "Well, I got a banjo at the house." So I pulled it out, and I just started playing banjo like crazy. And my dad had to slow me down and get me back on the guitar, because he said, "You're really a singer, and it's hard to sing and play the banjo." So when I got back on the guitar, my dad started playing banjo, my brother started playing bass, and we started traveling to bluegrass festivals and playing bluegrass music. And I was a real bluegrass snob for a while. It's the only thing I'd listen to. It was the only music on the planet. And I owe a lot of the precision end to the music that we play, just attention to detail, to being brought up in bluegrass, because it is the most in detail music on the planet. You can miss it by an inch and it sounds terrible. And so I owe it to that.
Certainly. Now you hail from Illinois, so you've got that Midwestern bluegrass, but all bluegrass is connected, whether here in Appalachia, in the Midwest, and that California bluegrass scene, Rocky Mountain bluegrass scene, and even overseas. It transcends across the waters.
Yeah.
And so that's a good pillar of music to have in your soul, is it not?
It's very down to earth, and where people search for reality, something that has grit and something that has depth. A lot of people reach for bluegrass because there's no chords, and you can stand in a corner and literally have your feet down there on the dirt in front of an RV playing bluegrass music.
That's right.
And it just has heart and earthiness to it that people long for. So.
That's true. A lot of life experiences, of course, sung about in country music and bluegrass as well. Now for you, when you're writing your music, life's experiences that you have gone through, and tell us how that plays a role in your songwriting, and how it comes out actually and translates.
When I moved to Nashville, I thought songwriting was just a way to manipulate words to get other people to react. But the more living I did, and the more I listened to other people's music that really moved me, I realized what I was connecting with was believability. It wasn't always just the way the song was put together as much as it was the way the singer was able to make me believe what he was saying. And so when that clicked in my head, I realized, well, then the best thing to write about would be something true and something that I've lived through. Because then I can sit on the stage and I can make these people believe it because it's true. I lived through it.
Exactly.
And once that happened, I started to, whether it be my struggles, when I get in more of an intimate setting, I'll be really vulnerable about times in my life of doubt or anger, or breaking somebody's heart or them breaking my heart, or however that might be. And then also I like to sing about falling in love, because I have done that, and being in love with my wife or my baby, or dreams for the future or whatever that might be. And it definitely finds itself in the music. Sometimes it's hard to find inspiration if life ever feels mundane. I'm lucky that it's never felt all that mundane.
Right.
So I've always seemed to have a song to pull. But yeah, I don't know if that answers your
Well,
question.
it certainly does. It makes me think too of your journey in music has taken you from Illinois to Nashville. You've signed on with Curb Records.
Yeah.
And that's a congratulations.
Yeah,
award.
thank you.
Now tell us the title of your first album.
Behind This Guitar.
Behind This Guitar.
Which is a song that was written by Phil O'Donnell and Don Sampson.
Mm-hmm.
And when I moved to town, I heard Phil O'Donnell play it at a writer's night, the Bluebird actually.
Mm-hmm.
And I fell in love with the song, but it seemed to be like out of reach for me. It never even occurred to me that I could record it.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until 2 years later, I was sitting in a room with Don Sampson writing, and he goes, "Let me play you one of my favorite songs I've ever written." And it was Behind This Guitar. I said, "Phil O'Donnell wrote that?" He goes, "Yeah, we wrote that together." And finally, the light bulb went off in my head, and we were halfway through our record, the first record, that I could record the song. I said, "Can I record that?" He goes, "Well, I'd love you to." And so when we recorded it, I immediately knew I wanted it to be the title track of our first record, because it just kind of explained my story up until that point.
Right.
And the song does, and I'm really proud to sing it. We sang it here tonight, and I'm just proud to share that part of my life.
You're working on a second album too, I understand.
Yes.
And what is the work in progress?
It's called, I believe, I don't know yet because the words have not met the paper yet on the front of the album, but I think it's going to be called Ain't Looking Back, which is interesting. It's another song that I didn't write. Yeah, Mark Nessler wrote this song, and I think the reason why this happens is because it takes a song to hit me in a very personal place for me to record someone else's song. So this song called Ain't Looking Back really is about my battle with the enemy, the devil, and his lies that he's told me in my head about me being worthless and not measuring up, and that my past can't be forgiven, or whatever he wants to say. This song is really talking face to face to him. And it's a very hopeful song, looking for the future. And then the rest of the album, we've recorded 16 songs. We're probably only going to have 13 that make it. And I think we're going to go back in and record maybe 5 or 6 more just to make sure we have it. But there's happy, upbeat, fun stuff, because you got to have that.
Sure.
And hopefully we can take some of those to radio to give this record a little attention on a more broader spectrum. But there's going to be parts of it that are really personal to me, and hopefully point other people in the right direction if they're in the same cloudy places that I've been.
So sharing your life experiences with those of your listeners, and we look forward to that second album coming out and talking to you again, good Lord willing. Before we do go, we have just a couple of moments left. One of my favorite stories that we spoke of yesterday on WLMU Radio, and that was your experience on the Grand Ole Opry stage.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, the very first time I played the Opry, I've gotten to play quite a bit now, but the first time was like through the roof. I played a song called Clean Up on Aisle 5 first, played that here tonight, and then we ended up with country. We played those 2 songs. And my management questioned my choice in songs because it was slow. And it's kind of a different title and a different idea. I sang it and got done with it, and the entire room was silent. And the first thought that popped into my head was, oh no, they didn't get it. And about a second into it, they kind of erupted and stood up on their feet, and I got a standing ovation. And I stepped up to the mic because I thought I heard them die down, and when they saw me step up to the mic, it got louder because they didn't want me to talk. And then I started crying.
Right.
And I think I told you that was the first time it clicked in my head, because I never, and still fight with wondering if I can do this for a living. But that was the first time the thought really flew into my head, which I don't know why, because I was standing on the Opry stage, that it finally said, maybe this is what you're supposed to do. Maybe this is why God made you fall in love with the guitar.
Amen.
And that's, from that point on, I've had a different attitude towards this, and it's really a special place to have that realization, to be on a stage where all the greats have stood and kind of realize maybe I'm supposed to be hanging out here for quite some time, Lord willing.
Sounds like the surreal became real.
Yes, it did.
That's,
It did.
that's good medicine right
Yeah.
there, is it not?
And it keeps doing that from time to time, thankfully.
Well, we certainly will follow your journey in music, and we look forward to another performance possibly in the near future or sometime in the future here in the tri-state area. And can you let our viewers and our listeners know about how they can find information on you and your music for
Yeah.
social media and website? Can you tell us about those?
MoPitney.com is my website.
Mm-hmm.
At MoPitney on all the platforms like Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. It'll take you to our page. You can find it on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube. Just type in Mo Pitney and you should be able to find some things to check out.
And they can get some good sampling of your music. They can hear it. They can feel it. And I think that's so cool that someone watching this interview will discover you and discover your music and journey along with you.
Yeah, well, that is amazing, and I hope they'll also discover some of the other artists that I've named tonight, because I'm not in this walk alone. I'm building off of a pretty big foundation. There's also people building on that foundation with me, and I just hope everybody gets the right amount of recognition as we go forward.
That's right. You know, always keep that memory going of the artist before.
Yeah.
Indeed so. Well, Mo Pitney, it has been a great pleasure visiting with you tonight here at the Green Room in the Palace in historic downtown Middlesboro, Kentucky, for this, the 4th annual Levitt Amp Middlesboro Music Series. And again, we've been visiting and talking with Mo Pitney, a country musician, singer, songwriter, instrumentalist, who writes and performs and sings from life's experiences, from the tradition of country music, and also from the heartland of America. I'm Gary Daniels with LMU Community TV and WLMU Cumberland Gap Radio. Until next week, good night, everyone.